See? You're gonna need to give me some guidance. Okay, we are in, do I hear a motion to move into executive session?
So moved. Seconded.
All right. All those in favor of executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Where is it? Okay.
Maybe in LB.
Oh, maybe. All right, so the first bill we have up here is House Bill 108, relative to confidentiality of reports.
There it is.
I'll blame it on the clock. Welcome.
No need for blame. We're all good.
Relative to confidentiality of reports made to the Division of Children, Youth, and Families. I know that there were some issues with even with the amendments. There have been, they did strip down the amendment somewhat. However, there's still a question when it says, when it's, where is it? It shall be a misdemeanor to maliciously or with intent to harm, make false statements. And complainant may be subject to criminal and civil penalties. We have no idea what the penalties are. It's not named. So I have spoken with I left a message for the prime sponsor in the House, and I told him that I know he has a new bill coming in. I'm going to recommend that, I have recommended that he communicate with some of the stakeholders to make some of these changes. So when it comes, if it still makes it over in the spring, we'll put some parameters around it. So I guess I should have said that after we made the motion. I move interim study.
Second.
What I said before. All those in favor of interim study, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
I'll move for second.
Second.
Third.
All those in favor of consent, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, I'll take it out. All right, next bill is Senate Bill 91, relative to qualifications of dentists to administer general anesthesia or deep sedation. I know that there are still questions, and I did leave a message for the prime sponsor on this. There are still questions on, well, anyway, do I hear a motion? I don't want to make this thing.
I move interim study.
I'll second. So I left a message for the prime sponsor, Senator Innes. There are still concerns that have not been addressed as to what happens if you have a single dentist in there who's administering the anesthesia but doing the surgery and there are complications. I know that Senator Innes is looking to put it in again. I have recommended to him that he needs to talk to the stakeholders in that sense and get a solution for that. So, any other comments?
So when this bill,
Thank you, Cam. When this bill was first introduced and before it was introduced, I think there was a lot of support for it as a safety mechanism. I was told by the Dental Society that they were going to update their rules and they would prefer to do with it in a rulemaking procedure as opposed to something mandated. But to the best of my knowledge, they have not updated their rules. I don't see anybody from the Dental Society here, so I guess I can get off my soapbox now, but leave it to say if this bill comes in again and their rules haven't been updated, I'm going to vote OTP.
Okay. Any other comment?
Senator Bradley, did you say the rules had been updated or hadn't been updated?
My understanding is they have not, and
Yeah.
this is almost now 7 or 8 months ago when it was, when we had a hearing, it was in February, and so I'm sort of a little surprised, because that was why I was able to go along with re-refer, so, anyway. I understand the single practitioner, but, this is oral surgery, and I think most oral surgeons have multiple people in their offices, so.
No.
All right, the motion is interim study.
We'll get it, Ken. We're
Right.
just rusty.
Just about the time we're done, we'll get it
By
right.
11:15, we'll have it.
So the motion is interim study. Any other comments? All those in favor of interim study, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Move consent.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Senator Agard, would you take this one out?
I'll definitely take it out.
Okay.
I would suggest in your blurb, you reference what I talked about with the rules. Thank you.
I'm sure Cam will take that in consideration. All right. Next on the list is Senate Bill 95, relative to medical loss reporting by dental benefit providers. We do have an amendment here. Does anyone have a motion?
I move interim study. I think there's some work that the parties need to do to work this out together. I don't think we're quite ready there. So I would make that motion, encourage folks to get back to the table.
I'll second that. I'll second that. Thank you, Ken. Yeah.
Oh, you put your thing on.
I don't know. I didn't. I did now. It said 11:15. I have 5 more minutes to get this down.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments?
So, I know this bill has been subject of quite a bit of discussion from both Delta and the insurance department. I could have supported ought to pass, no amendments. I think that wasn't workable for the insurance department. What I'd suggest is if there is the opportunity for agreement between Delta and the department, we can take that up in January with a potential floor amendment. So if there is an interim study, is a good outcome.
All those in favor of interim study, say aye.
Aye.
I move consent.
All those opposed?
Oh, sorry.
Senator Whitley moves consent.
Second.
All those in favor of consent, say aye.
Aye.
Senator Whitley, would you like to take this?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Next on the list is the Senate Bill 116. I move interim study.
I'll second that.
Okay, and I'll speak to the motion. I had a conversation with HHS a few weeks ago, and apparently there are issues from the HHS and corrections did not get together on the requirements. So HHS has asked that it be interim studied so that they can work with the corrections to get it right. So. Any other comments? All those in favor of interim study, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Yeah, move consent.
Senator Whitley moves consent. I will second. All those in favor of consent, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll take it out, Cam. Okay, Senate Bill 131, relative to healthcare provider contract standards. Okay, Senator Bradley moves interim study, Senator Avard seconds. Would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, so I think this is an important issue. This is, not the first time we've seen this bill. It doesn't sound like it's been resolved. And so really want to encourage the parties to continue to work on resolution to make sure that this does get resolved, or we're just going to keep seeing it again and again and again.
Any other comments? All right, all those in favor of interim study, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Consent.
Senator Bradley moves consent. I'll second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Senator Prentice, would you like to take this one out? Or,
I can do it.
okay. Since you had the conversation with the Senator Susie. All right, next on the list is Senate Bill 173 relative to surprise medical bills. I'm going to move interim study. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I had a conversation with a number of people. From my understanding, the amendment that is presented is very similar to the federal amendment. And unfortunately, there are concerns on the federal side. Pieces of that amendment have been taken to court, are being taken to court. So my sense is, and when they tried to amend it to take out the pieces that were going to court, it wasn't approved. So my sense is I think we should move this to interim study, mostly because we'll have an idea towards the end what's going to be happening on the federal side. and then we can move ahead with it. Commissioner, did you want to come up and speak?
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. So as I had mentioned earlier this year, this piece of legislation is the single most important priority for the department. And as a result of that, we worked unbelievably hard. And Michelle Heaton is here. She is the head legal person for our Life and Health Division. She and several others worked incredibly hard. We took into account every single concern that we heard, predominantly from the Hospital Association. They attempted to assuage those concerns. What you see before you, I want to stress, is the result of months' worth of work. What we have done, two major pieces. The first is to make uniform the state's current balanced billing provisions with those of the No Surprises Act so that we don't have two different regulatory schemes depending on the type of plan that the individual has. Yes.
I'm sorry, I actually don't have an amendment in front of me. I don't,
So there's an amendment sent as a Word document from Commissioner Betancourt to Senator Birdsall. It was not drafted as an amendment. Do you want me to, do you want me to print off copies of that Word document real quick, or?
Do you want to go into you finish what you actually?
Certainly. What you will see, I certainly hope you will see when you see the amendment, is that we have, as I said, tried to make uniform the provisions of state statute with those of the No Surprises Act, so that you don't have, as I said, two different sets of protections depending on whether you've got a fully insured or a self-insured plan. The second provision that you will see, and again, this was where there was some disagreement and concern between the original bill and the Hospital Association, which is how do you deal with the independent dispute resolution process? So under the state provisions, as an example, what will happen is if the parties want the issue to be resolved, they can come to the insurance department. And under statute, the insurance commissioner, who in this case would be me, would let the parties be heard, take in the information that the parties want to provide in having me consider what the appropriate resolution is and then make that decision. We were going to, as part of the acceptance of delegation from the federal government of the No Surprises Act provisions, have us do it the same way. And the Hospital Association said that they were uncomfortable having one individual have that kind of broad authority. So we said, okay, we will create our own independent dispute resolution process so that it will come into the department, and then we will treat it the same way we do for, say, an external review. So we will certify the independent dispute resolutors, that's a word, and then we will ship it out to them. They will make the decision just as they do under the federal system. And that would help to sidestep the problems that we're seeing at the federal level where the IDR process is in some cases overwhelmed, and so resolutions are not being done in an expedient manner. And in other cases, there is litigation that goes on that shuts down the entire IDR process at the federal level entirely. I think we may be in one of those phases as we speak. So we said that helps to alleviate that problem. The Hospital Association, again, raised some additional concerns, so I said, okay, we will turn the IDR process into a choose-your-own-adventure story. If you would like, if you would prefer to use the federal process, you absolutely can do that. However, if you don't like the federal process because, again, it's backlogged or not working at all because it's been enjoined or shut down, then you can come to the state IDR process, and we will do it for you cheaper, and we will make sure that the job gets done, and we will make sure that the parties that prevail get paid in a timely manner. So we've tried to provide as much flexibility and opportunity under our amendment as humanly possible. That's where we stand here at the moment. And obviously, once you've had the opportunity to review the amendment, if you have additional questions, we're happy to answer those questions. Did I cover everything, Michelle?
Yeah, just one thing to add. Under our current system, no surprises, it's still the law and it still applies in New Hampshire unless the state has a more specific law. Right now, we do have law on the books, but it's only specific to 4 provider groups. So if you're in one of those provider groups, it's anesthesiology, pathology, emergency, and I'm blanking on the 4th one, but there's 4 of them. So if you're in one of those specialties, you have to go through the state system. So when you're trying to navigate this balanced billing process, you kind of need a map to figure out which system's even available to you. So part of the reason why we want this bill to move forward is so that there is one system. You don't have to figure out, does the state law apply? Does the federal law apply? Where do I go? So this will make it a lot smoother. And just one more thing to add, when we were drafting this latest amendment, we aligned all of the state standards for the IDR process with the federal standards that are in statute. So we do not refer to any of the federal rules, and those are the rules are what is subject to litigation, and that's what keeps causing the system to shut down, and they have to go back and redraft rules. So everything that we're aligning is on the federal statute, and there hasn't been any litigation yet that is trying to strike down the federal statute. So we're hoping that will alleviate concerns and cut down on the prospect of any kind of litigation in New Hampshire.
Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is first of all, so what you're saying is that there is no litigation on any of the pieces of the federal piece that you've emulated.
That's right. Where the litigation has arisen is around the rule process, the rules that have been promulgated to carry forward the provisions of the No Surprises Act. The statute itself, to my knowledge, and Michelle's way smarter than I am, we have not seen any litigation challenging the underlying statute.
Yeah, just curious, did you share this with the Hospital Association and you both come to the same agreement?
Well, I can't certainly speak for them. We have tried to take into account the concerns that they have. We obviously knew that you guys were going to have to take action on this, so our latest amendment took into account as many of the concerns that they raised as of, I want to say, about 2 weeks ago. So I'm not able to tell you that we've been able to perfectly address every particular concern that they might have. What I can certainly have tried. And we have given them, I think, everything we reasonably could to try to make this palatable for them.
Senator Whitley.
Madam Chair, maybe we could hear from other folks too on the issue?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, Paula?
Nice chair. Good morning. It's a different chair. I like it. Good morning, Paula Minahan. So we received a copy of this amendment on Friday afternoon. We have not had a chance to review it. From what I can tell, it is not redlined. So this is a 12-page amendment, and it's going to require a extensive review side by side and then review with our members, which is what we traditionally do. We did share an amendment with the Department of, after, as Commissioner Betancourt indicated, shared their amendment back in middle of, or early October, I guess. We shared our red line on the 12th of October and offered to sit down and go over our edits and our logic behind it. And we heard back about a week later that there was, that they basically understood that we had made some extensive amendments, but had no interest at that time anyway in meeting with us. There was no indication of that. So the next we heard was on Friday afternoon. So again, we have not had a chance to review this. In addition, relative to what Michelle and the Commissioner indicated, There are federal dispute resolution process administrative fee and certified IDR entry fee range proposed rules at the federal level. The AHA just submitted a very extensive 6-page letter commenting on this on October 26th. So this is still, as indicated, this is still well in the discussions, and you can't really proceed with adjudicating processes without administrative rules, as you're well aware, even and obviously at the federal level. So we support interim study. There is just, and I think it's really important to remember, the patient is not caught in the middle. The patient is protected. If anything, the provider is the one that's not able to really necessarily get resolution to all of this, but we believe very strongly that there needs to be, the federal IDR process has to get figured out before we proceed. And again, there's no opportunity or no chance that the patient or the consumer is caught in the middle, which is to us the most important thing. Thank you.
Both for Paula or Commissioner, are there any other states that have actually enacted, a state provision? And what makes what this bill is trying to do different from other states? Because obviously then other states have gone forward without the federal rules being in place.
My understanding is there are about 12 other states that have put something in state statute, but I don't have that compendium, honestly, Senator, to tell you exactly what they did put in place. The rest go by the federal process.
I think DJ wanted to comment on it too.
So again, kind of following a little bit of the history. So when the proposal originally came forward, having the commissioner be the arbiter, the final decision maker, that would have been, in fact, unique. No other state had done it that way. So again, so we said, all right, let's take a look at how the other states are dealing with this issue. To my knowledge, of the 12, if not all 12, then a very healthy majority of that 12 use the state form of the IDR process as we propose. Now, again, what will then make New Hampshire a little bit more unique is the fact that we're actually providing an option. You can use that federal process if that's what you prefer, or you can use a state process to sidestep the issues that the federal government are having around that process. So we're actually trying to provide more opportunities than I think other states have to this point.
Yes. Question. Sorry. Thank you, Commissioner. So if I'm hearing you correctly, there would be two choices. One would be the federal IDR, but if it was the state IDR, the authority would sit with your office.
No.
No. So
No, what we
where's
would
this coming
do,
from?
sure. So what we would do is, as I said, I liken it to what we do for an external review. So the parties will come to the department and say, we need an independent dispute resolution process because we can't agree. We would say, okay, we would package up that information. We would give it to one of the IDRs that we would certify, and then let them make the decision, just as they do in an external review process. And then whatever the decision is would be binding upon the parties.
Okay.
So the motion right now is, I believe, interim study. It was seconded. I know that the amendment, faux pas on my part, not sending it out to everyone. But I think what I would recommend is we continue with the interim study. We have until it comes to the floor. So the commissioner, I would highly recommend you talk to some of the other members and the hospital association. And if it needs to be changed, we can always do it on the floor, or we can amend a bill that comes through. Is that okay? All right. Yes.
I would, second that. This ought to be something that everybody can agree to. This issue, Senator Carson sponsored this bill. I think I sponsored the previous bill that same thing happened to. I understand the desire to see the federal rules, but if 12 of the states have moved forward, it would seem to me that hospitals, physicians who actually indicated opposition to the bill want to see their providers protected too. So got 8 weeks to see if you can work it out.
Thank you, Senator.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It would only print out on legal.
What's really special?
All right,
Senator Burton?
yes.
Just for the Department of Insurance, is there, Commissioner or Rochelle, is there a red line version so we can do a side by side?
No,
Okay.
Do you have a summary of the changes you made? Thank you, Michelle.
All right. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of interim study, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And,
I don't think this should go on consent because I'm hoping there's a resolution.
I agree. I will take it out. Okay. I'll review that this weekend. 73. Okay. Next would be Senate Bill 176, and we do have an amendment, and I actually might ask Department of Insurance on this too.
I'll move OTP so I can introduce the amendment.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm still
please.
functioning with life. What is wrong with me today?
So I want to move amendment 2412. This amendment, so if folks remember, the bill was introduced by Senator Perkins Coca because she's in regular contact with many mothers and with many providers who provide pelvic floor therapy, which is a very important, honestly, sort of newer therapy. Even when I had my child 10 years ago, it's not something that we knew a lot about, talked a lot about, but it is something, a therapy that has allowed many women to retain sort of normal functioning. No woman, in my opinion, should have to sort of suffer through incontinence as a result of childbirth when there are certainly therapies that are available to ameliorate it. So what we heard at the hearing was that there was a lot of confusion about the coverage. Some carriers were saying they cover it, but a lot of providers really didn't feel like it was adequate coverage. So as sort of a middle ground, we have an amendment here, 2412, that essentially just asks the Department of Insurance to provide written guidance on the actual coverage to both providers and to the carriers to adequately make sure that we do have coverage for this important service. And then similar to what I'm very grateful that the commissioner did for SB 177 is to do that sort of review of gaps in coverage. I found that so helpful. So my suggestion would be that we pass this amendment now, and if this can get accomplished without legislation before we take this up in January, that's fine, but it would be good to just sort of have this in the meantime, and then we'll come back to it in January.
Do you have a copy of this?
Yeah,
Oh, you do?
I sent it to him.
Okay. Do you want to?
So thank you again, Senator. Yes, I've received a copy of the amendment. We are happy to undertake this work, just as we did in the other example. What I can tell you is that we can certainly do that without legislation. That being said, if you want to hold my feet to the fire, that's fine with me. We know how to do this work. What I would also share is obviously this is an issue that has been discussed quite a bit this year. In some of the meetings that I've been part of, kind of the the cursory review that I've seen is that as a fundamental matter, there are providers that are in network, which is obviously good. However, we do know, as Senator Whitley mentioned, that there are a number of providers who are not in network, and they're not in network for a number of different reasons. One is it's just not part of their particular business model. Some of them are independent providers, and so the contracting process and the billing process are a little bit outside of their wheelhouse, if you will. It's a bit daunting for them. And others just don't want to work with insurance in some cases. And so what that means for consumers is that if they have a provider that they really like, that has been recommended to them, that does great work in this space, there are challenges as to whether or not that particular provider is a network. And that obviously provides a bit of a difficult decision for the consumer, whether or not they have access to a plan that provides them with the type of flexibility to be able to go out of network when there are other in-network providers that are available, or whether or not they can work out some sort of out-of-pocket arrangement with that particular provider. You know, I think fundamentally what we're seeing implicated here is the friction that is within a managed care system. We obviously like managed care because it helps to keep premiums affordable. We don't like managed care when the consumer does not have access to the particular provider that they want. They may fall out of that network. But what I think the amendment calls for is to us to kind of do a formal survey of the provider landscape in this space, and we will certainly do that. I would just make you aware that we will probably have to seek an outside vendor for that, so that'll be some resources that we'll need within the department, but I run a tight ship. We'll find the money somewhere. So
I just wanted to thank the commissioner for his attention to this important issue and his willingness to keep working on this with us.
absolutely. Thank you, Senator.
I do have a question. So if in fact, let's say a provider is in network and the insurance company turns down the service, is there an enforcement mechanism?
So it sounds to me what you're referencing is if in the event there was a provider that was in network, but the consumer, for whatever reason, was not getting the prior authorization to go to that provider. Because if they had the prior auth, they have the ability to choose any provider that's in network that they want. So where the snag would come in the example that you posited would be that there's some issue with the prior auth. And yes, there is a process by which you can appeal.
Yeah, so there's two things going on there. It could be that the claim's being improperly adjudicated. If the consumer is kind of being stuck in the middle here and they're not really sure what to do, that's when we would encourage them to reach out to our consumer services within the department. They'll help them navigate the system and make sure if it's a claim that needs to be covered, it will get covered. The other issue that could come up is a medical necessity issue. So if there's a dispute as to whether the services that the person is seeking are actually medically necessary, there's another system for that. You'd go through the internal appeals process where you'd have reviews with the carrier, and then they'd have the option to go to external review where an outside entity would review everything and make a determination whether it was really medically necessary or not. And if it's medically necessary, it's covered.
Would the, who would do that? Would it be the patient or the provider?
Either one can do it. Usually the provider assists with that process because they're the ones that have the medical knowledge.
Okay, and they know that this process, so the patient wouldn't be caught in the middle.
Yes, and again, the department's always here to help out. So that's another thing that we field, the external reviews as they come in. And sometimes they are from the individual, the covered person, and we would assist them in telling them what they need as part of that external review process. And usually it's information from their doctor, medical records, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? All right, thank you. All right, so the motion is ought to pass.
And so I'll move amendment 2412.
Second that.
All right,
I'll second that.
all those in favor of the amendment 2412S, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll move ought to pass as amended.
I'll second.
All those in favor of OTPA on 176, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do we want it on consent?
Let's not, in case we can have resolution before then, or
Okay,
Senator Perkins Cook will likely want to speak to it also.
all right.
thank you.
So, Senator Whitley, would you like to take it out?
Yeah.
Okay. Last but not least, Senate Bill 177, and I have no idea where my 177 folder is, but I do have the amendment.
So we all have our unique challenges today.
Yes.
Apparently.
We're doing it, so.
So, do I hear a motion on 177? Senator Prentice moves on.
Ought to pass, right, and then I'll
I'll
introduce
second.
my amendment when we have the, when we're good.
I second it. All right.
Okay. So I'm going to actually, I'm going to speak to it and then introduce my amendment. Does that work for you?
That's fine.
Senator Birdsall, so when we last left this, like the chapter in a storybook that is pro New Hampshire children on the move. I had learned my lesson on insurance mandate reviews, and I have to tell you that I had an excellent summer working with the department on a number of projects, including this. So an insurance mandate review was completed, and the language that you see before you, and I'll introduce the high points of this, was actually prepared by the department. One of the things that this is the first time I've read an insurance mandate review that I found, well, not just, I mean, it aligned with exactly why this is something we need to do, is it talked about the impact on children and leading healthy lifestyles and what that might mean down the road by taking this one step now when they're, under the age of 18, being able to get them on the playground or involved in sports in a way that is meaningful and bringing about an active lifestyle. So we did the insurance mandate review. What's been changed and has been written into this amendment is that it removes orthotics and it just focuses on the prosthetics. So for example, that would be, because we don't have our show and tell with us today, that would be like a blade for running. You'll often see, runners with, a very specific blade that they use. So that is an activity-specific prosthetic. There's one of them that they can get. Medical oversight is required. So that is the same system that we just talked about with the previous piece of legislation where there would be medical necessity. And if there was any dispute over medical necessity, it would then go outside of the carrier for a review. And this excludes the small health options, the SHOP, it's the under 50 plans. Because that could, as I understood from talking to Michelle, and she has been very good about schooling me, that there may be costs that would be defrayed that would need to be managed by the state. So with that, and there may be some questions, I learned a lot during this process. I think that it supports the initiative here, so New Hampshire Kids Can Move, and put some guardrails on it that I believe work for those in the room that I've spoken to, and that's it. So that's my amendment, 24, 1, is that a 0 or a 6? There.
6.
Six.
Second that amendment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your work on this, Senator.
Really, actually, the Department of Insurance.
And thank you too. I know you've had a busy half a year,
Not even half a year, right?
4 months. So the motion is ought to pass on the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. We didn't say anything.
I didn't. I'm still pondering, but that's okay. We'll go.
I'm about to pass as amended.
Second. All those in favor of ought to pass as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Do you want
Senator Prentice, you want to take this out?
I'll take it out and consent's fine with me.
okay, you sure?
No, I'll speak to it. Okay, yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Did we take a vote?
We did.
Okay.
And I'll take it out and I'll speak, it won't go on consent.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has participated. I really appreciate it. I know it was my first year as chair of HHS, and I appreciate the patience you all gave me. So with that, I'll hear a motion to go out of exec. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, just wanted to, this